Dreams, Visions, and Prophets of the Great Spirit by Dennis M. Morrison from his book, Secret Society of the Shamans, published by Global Communications. I cannot help but marvel at how North American Indian culture is so diverse, from tribe to tribe, even within a close geographical area. There are, however, certain things which show little variation from group to group. One area which ties deeply into the spiritual significance and beliefs of the Indians is dreams and visions. One need only look at the vision quest practiced among almost all American Indians. A plethora of material has been entered into American literature on this subject, so we will touch only briefly upon it later in this chapter. Dreams, however, have been of a mystical influence on all cultures of the world. They have influenced great wars and great discoveries. Dreams are the stuff of which prophecy is made of. But who among the Indians dreams the dreams, or who has the visions? Well, of course, like us, they all do. But does anyone's dreams have more import than others? Naturally, those of the shaman or powerful chief held the heaviest weight. And there were also the Winkleys, special prophets whose dreams held great significance. Who or what were the Winkleys? Well, they were men who dressed like women. They did this by their own choice through instruction that they received via dreams. According to John Lame Deer, the Great Spirit made them this way and endowed them with a special gift of prophecy. It is also told that that a father would give a horse to have one of these shaman name his child, as it was believed to be a very powerful medicine and a name chosen by the Winkleys. The Winkleys' prophets are said to be of a very special, enigmatic, and unique origin. They begin as twins or of different sexes growing in the womb, and through some spiritual manifestation they are merged into one. Naturally, the dreams of the shaman are extremely powerful. It is interesting to point out here that a shaman learns his path in life through a dream, in particular, the vision quest. It is at that time that the young man who has reached puberty learns whether he will be a hunter, a shaman, or a great warrior. Dreams, dances, and medicine go hand in hand, and if during the course of an illness a dance is deemed necessary, it is so ordered by the shaman. Dreams are believed to be the language of the soul, and for those who consider astral projection to be of Eastern origin, I say look again. The soul's separation from the body during the dream state was and still is very much employed by the Indians. I met an elderly Indian lady at my Cato, Michigan reservation. Her name escapes me now, and it doesn't really matter, but she looked ancient, as though she had always been here to watch the slow parade of time. And she told me that when she sleeps, her soul often leaves her body and wanders to any place it so desires. She also claims that during these ethereal wanderings that she can steal the souls of others. Such beliefs, though, were part of the record from the early contact period. Christian missionaries found that the Huron Indians believed that their souls detached from their bodies during sleep and wandered completely independent of the body's control. Again, early missionaries to the Northeast were astounded by the strong faith given to dreams. The Hurons considered them as direct orders from Gitche-Manitou, the great creator spirit. Without delay, orders received in dreams had to be carried out. It was also found that in order for an individual's dreams to be carried out without question, that he had to be a person of higher than average standing in his group, and that dreams of his had in the past come true. It was delegated to the parent to dream for the child, and if the dream was of a symbolic nature, it was left to the shaman to interpret and to act upon. Most Indian men went to a lonely, secluded place to obtain their visions. At such places it was not uncommon for spirits to come to the individual to aid him. To assist in the desired vision coming with more swiftness, the Crow Indian would practice self-sacrifice, sometimes cutting off small pieces of a finger. The vision quest among the Miami Indians, as with most others, began with a fast of several days at puberty. This was for the distinct purpose of discovering their guardian spirit, and both boys and girls participated in this. Fasting was just a part of it. There was a special place selected for the vision. It was always a lonely, out-of-the-way place where the seeker could be alone. In many tribes, this was a pit in the ground away from the village, and often on a hill so as to be nearer to the Great Spirit. The vision seeker was going to go through one of the most sacred of traditions. through his quest, he would, if successful, obtain a powerful medicine or amulet, which would accompany him through all the trials of life. Besides those preparations already mentioned, the seeker would sometimes take a sweat bath beforehand for purification, as well as bathing in the smoke from pine needles. Depending on what tribe you belong to, you might then be painted with white clay, although this was not the rule. Usually, after purification, the seeker would go to his special spot naked save for moccasins and a breechclout, so that he would be humbled before the Great Spirit. The duration of the quest was anywhere from 1 to 5 days, with 4 being about the average. The visions were not always a success, but it was of great importance to not deceive others if you failed personally or the vision just did not come to you. A great many people, skeptics, who must find a rational explanation for everything, claim that the vision is manifested due to the hunger and state the seeker must be in after 4, sometimes more days. But in point of fact, the fasting process is part of the cleansing and is in fact not a great deal different from the Jewish-Christian custom of fasting for cleansing. The lady that I spoke of from the work of Kichigami had indeed the next spring a very long quest, 8 days, but the results finally came to him. His narrative is wonderful and says so much about the Indian spirituality and the vision quest itself. One Indian book is simply called the Kichigami, the cloud, and here's why. The cloud's visions occurred. He said that, and I quote, "On the 8th night I heard a rustling and waving in the branches. It was like a heavy bear or elk breaking through the shrubs and forest. I was greatly afraid, but the man who approached me, whoever he may have been, read my thoughts and saw my fear at a distance. So he came towards me more and more, gently, and rested, quite noiselessly, on the branches over my head. Then he began to speak to me and to ask me, 'Are you afraid, my son?' And I replied, 'No, I no longer fear. Why art thou here in this tree?' And I replied, 'To fast, to gain strength, and to know my life.'" End quote. The communication between the cloud and the man was not in verbal utterings, but as though they looked into each other's hearts and minds and knew the thoughts. The cloud knew the thoughts. The cloud was instructed to follow the mysterious man. The cloud rose up from his bed with little effort after 8 nights and followed, but I am sure he did not physically follow, rather in the spirit, as this was his vision. His spirit floated towards the east. In fact, the cloud said it felt as though they were floating on air, going higher and higher into a lofty mountain ever eastward. Cloud said, and I quote, "When we reached the summit, after a long time, I found a wigwam built there, to which we entered, and at first I saw nothing but a large white stone that lay in the middle of the hut. But on looking around more sharply, I saw 4 men sitting around the stone. They invited me to take a seat on the white stone in the midst of them. But I hardly sat down, and the stone began shaking into the earth. 'Stay,' one of the men said. 'Wait a minute, we have forgotten the foundation.' And thus speaking, he fetched a white tanned deerskin and covered the stone with it. When I sat on it again, it was as firm as a tree, and I sat comfortably. It is in such manner that end quote, by the way, it is in such manner that the vision quest proceeds. The amazing thing to all who have studied this phenomenon is that it works. It should never be tried alone, however, as special instruction is required." This article on dreams and visions can probably be best ended with a letter written in 1709 at Quebec by missionary Radeau. You must remember, though, that this will have a slant to his own way of thinking. And the letter begins, and I quote, "The Indians are much given to dreams and are so well persuaded that it is their spirit who gives them to them that they absolutely must carry them out. It is dreams which oblige them to undertake wars, to make great voyages, to abandon war parties which they have undertaken against their enemies, and to return from them to their cabins. It is also these dreams that give them their spirit, or to use their term, their manitou, which they imagine takes care of them in all the acts of their lives." The Indians he continue, whom time has made wise in spite of themselves and incapable of the same debauches that they formerly had, recount to their children of the ways they came into the world, of their country and their wars, and tell them a thousand stories filled with superstition. But as soon as there is one of them who has reached the age of 10 or 12 years, and who can use the bow and arrow, his father says to him that he is of the age to get a spirit and to choose a Manitou for himself. And he gives him at the same time the instruction necessary to succeed. For this purpose he has to him a matak, or to paint his face black with crushed charcoal, and requires him in this state to fast for several days, in order that, having the brain empty, he can more easily dream during his sleep, which is the time that the god ought to disclose himself to him and strike his imagination. And to strike his imagination with some extraordinary things, or some animal which holds the place of divinity for him. The father, anxious to know the dream of this child, watches the time of his awakening in order that he speaks to no one before him and questions him privately on what happened in his imagination during the night. If nothing has appeared, he counsels him to continue his fast, saying to him that on this occasion he must give marks of his firmness and strength. Finally, his brain represents to him some object such as the sun, the thunder, or other extraordinary things of which he has often heard his father or elders speak. When this child dreams, he runs to carry the news to his father, who strongly recommends to him not to divulge it, and encourages him with many reasons to accept this dream, and to honor the idea which he takes thenceforth from his childhood for his divinity, for his Manitou, for his protector, and continues during his life to worship by its sacrifices and by feast with which he gives honor to the Manitou.